When you think of Michael Tait, most people remember him as the joyful, passionate, and unshakably positive frontman of Newsboys and a founding member of DC Talk. Known for his deep Christian faith, charisma, and powerful stage presence, Michael always came across as someone who valued love, grace, and encouragement. But behind the scenes, even Tait had his share of conflicts, rivalries, and frustrations within the music industry. In this video, we reveal the top 6 music artists Michael Tait reportedly hated, or at least strongly disliked, the most. These are artists who either clashed with his values, rubbed him the wrong way, or represented everything he felt was wrong with the music world. Let's dive right in. When DC Talk was at their peak in the 1990s, their mission was to bring Christian faith into mainstream pop and rock. At the same time, Marilyn Manson was storming into the spotlight with a very different message: rebellion, darkness, and open criticism of religion. For Michael Tait, this wasn't just music, it was a direct challenge to the foundation of his career. Manson became a symbol of everything Christian artists like DC Talk were preaching against. Tait once remarked in interviews that the glorification of destruction and nihilism in music was toxic to young listeners, and though he rarely called names directly, it was clear artists like Manson were at the center of that critique. Fans close to the band say Tait's dislike wasn't just personal, it was ideological. He couldn't stand the thought of teenagers idolizing someone who mocked faith and promoted chaos. When Kanye West announced his faith-based album Jesus is King in 2019, the Christian music world was split. Some embraced Kanye's sudden change of heart, while others, including Michael Tait, were skeptical. Tait reportedly struggled with Kanye's inconsistencies. On one hand, Kanye was preaching about Jesus, but on the other, he was still wrapped in controversy, ego, and unpredictable behavior. For Tait, authenticity was everything, and he often expressed frustration when artists used faith as a brand rather than a sincere lifestyle. While Tait never made it a full-blown feud, he was clear in conversations and interviews that he distrusted celebrity Christianity. Kanye, with all his contradictions, embodied that problem. For someone like Tait, who had spent his entire career standing firm in his beliefs, this kind of spectacle was hard to respect. The British rock band Oasis, led by the Gallagher brothers, became icons of 1990s alternative music. But while their songs climbed the charts, their personalities often rubbed people the wrong way. Known for their brash arrogance, foul language, and ego-driven fights, Oasis became one of the most polarizing bands in the world. Michael Tait reportedly had zero tolerance for arrogance. While he respected musical talent, he couldn't stand artists who treated others poorly or acted like they were bigger than life itself. In interviews, Tait often emphasized humility and service over fame. For him, Oasis represented the dark side of celebrity culture, a lifestyle built on pride and disrespect. Insiders in Christian music circles recall Tait joking that he'd rather sit in silence than listen to Oasis brag about themselves in yet another interview. To him, the Gallagher brothers' egos made their art unappealing. Michael Tait grew up in Washington, D.C., where rap and hip-hop culture were everywhere. He admired the power of music to tell stories and reach broken communities. But one artist he couldn't stomach was Eminem. While Eminem is celebrated as one of the greatest rappers alive, his music often contained raw profanity, violence, and disrespectful themes. For Tait, who devoted his life to uplifting messages, this felt like poison. He once commented in a Christian magazine interview that music should build up, not tear down, a statement many fans interpreted as a veiled critique of rappers like Eminem. Tait's frustration wasn't just about bad words, it was about the impact on fans. He believed artists had a responsibility, and Eminem's music, in his view, normalized destructive behavior. Even as Eminem matured in his later career, Tait remained unconvinced that his message aligned with anything positive. Few bands embodied chaos and rebellion like Slipknot. With their masks, aggressive lyrics, and violent stage shows, they became icons of nu metal in the early 2000s. But for Michael Tait, Slipknot was the epitome of music gone wrong. In several conversations, Tait criticized artists who glorify darkness or use shock value instead of substance. Though he never singled out Slipknot by name, fans and insiders put the pieces together. This was the exact description of bands like Slipknot. What Tait hated most wasn't just the sound, it was the spiritual undertone. He saw Slipknot as pushing young people further into anger, hopelessness, and rebellion, instead of lifting them toward purpose and hope. In his eyes, this wasn't just bad art, it was dangerous. At the top of the list sits none other than Madonna. While many admired her as the queen of pop, Michael Tait reportedly saw her as one of the most troubling figures in mainstream music. Because Madonna built an empire on controversy, sexuality, and pushing boundaries against faith. From mocking Christian imagery in her videos to deliberately stirring outrage, Madonna became a cultural icon of rebellion against tradition. For Tait, whose faith and career were built on respect for God, this was deeply offensive. Over the years, he made it clear that he had no admiration for artists who mocked spirituality for fame. And Madonna, more than anyone else, embodied that. While he never launched a public attack, his inner circle confirmed that she was an artist he simply could not stand. Michael Tait has always been known as a positive, loving, and faithful musician. He's not the type to launch open wars against other artists, but like everyone else, he has his limits. These 6 artists, Marilyn Manson, Kanye West, Oasis, Eminem, Slipknot, and Madonna, represented the things Tait hated most in music: arrogance, insincerity, profanity, chaos, and disrespect for faith. In the end, his dislikes weren't about jealousy or competition. They were about values. Tait devoted his life to building people up through music, and he simply couldn't respect artists who, in his eyes, tore people down. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Even in the world of music rivalries, Michael Tait's hate was never about revenge or ego, it was